The first gunshot didn't come from the street. It came from the heart. In a world where love was a luxury and trust could get you killed, passion was the most dangerous crime of all. That was the unspoken rule of the Casillas family, a rule broken the moment two souls chose each other over fear. In the ruthless universe of Dinastía Casillas, power was inherited like a curse, and every relationship was tested by blood, ambition, and betrayal. The Casillas name opened doors, but it also painted targets on backs. For those who loved within this dynasty, romance was never gentle. It was fierce, consuming, and often tragic. They met in the middle of chaos. One carried the weight of a legacy soaked in violence, raised to believe that weakness meant death. The other arrived with a past full of wounds, but a heart that still believed love could heal even the darkest scars. Their first glance was not soft or shy. It was a collision. Two lives recognizing each other in a place where recognition usually led to destruction. Their love grew in stolen moments. Whispered conversations behind closed doors, hands brushing in silence, eyes speaking what words could not. Every kiss felt like rebellion. Every embrace was a promise to survive one more day. But passion in the Casillas world never goes unpunished. The first challenge came from within. Trust did not come easily. Secrets were part of daily survival, and honesty felt like walking unarmed into enemy territory. Past betrayals had taught them that love could be used as leverage. They fought often, not because they lacked love, but because they were terrified of losing it. Jealousy burned. Doubt poisoned moments meant to be tender. Yet every argument ended the same way, with the realization that walking away hurt more than staying and fighting. Then came the external enemies. Rivals watched closely, waiting for a weakness. Love became that weakness. Threats arrived disguised as warnings. Choices had to be made between loyalty to family and loyalty to the heart. When violence struck close, it left scars that no gunshot could match. One mistake almost cost a life. Another nearly ended the relationship forever. Separation followed, not from lack of love, but from the belief that distance could protect what closeness endangered. Those days apart were the most painful. Nights felt endless. Silence became unbearable. They learned that passion does not fade with distance, it sharpens. Absence made every memory louder, every touch unforgettable. When they reunited, it was not dramatic, it was quiet. Two people exhausted by fear, choosing courage instead. They faced the truth together at last. Love could not erase their world, but it could redefine how they lived in it. They stopped running, they stopped hiding, they stood side by side, ready to face consequences as one. The final challenge was acceptance. Not everyone would approve. Not every battle would be won. But they learned that romance is not about perfection, it is about persistence. Passion is not just fire, it is endurance. And love, real love, is choosing the same person again even when the cost is high. In the end, their story was not about crime or power. It was about two hearts refusing to surrender. In a dynasty built on fear, they created something rare. A love that survived ambition. A passion that outlived violence. A reminder that even in the darkest worlds, romance can still be an act of courage. And that was their greatest victory. Silence after love is louder than gunfire. When they chose each other openly, the world around them did not soften. It watched, waited, and sharpened its knives. In the dangerous universe of Dinastía Casillas, love was never allowed to rest. It was tested again and again, until only the strongest bond survived. Morning came with tension instead of peace. Every shared breakfast felt temporary. Every smile carried the fear of interruption. They were together now, but together meant visible, and visible meant vulnerable. The Casillas name followed them everywhere, heavy and unforgiving. Allies questioned their loyalty. Enemies saw opportunity. Even the walls felt like they were listening. The next challenge arrived through family. Blood ties demanded obedience, not emotion. Warnings came disguised as advice. Love was called a distraction, a weakness that could destroy everything built over years of power and fear. They were asked to choose family or heart, legacy or future. The pressure was relentless, and it carved doubt into even the strongest moments between them. This time, the conflict did not explode immediately. It grew slowly. Conversations became careful. Words were measured. Fear crept into affection. One of them began pulling away, believing sacrifice was the only way to protect the other. Distance returned, but this time it hurt deeper because it was intentional. Love was still there, but it was being buried alive. Outside forces took advantage. A rival moved closer, whispering lies, twisting truths, manipulating silence. Old mistakes resurfaced. Trust cracked. Accusations replaced understanding. For the first time, separation felt final. Not dramatic, not loud, just two people standing on opposite sides of a line neither knew how to cross. Pain became personal growth. Alone, they confronted their own darkness. One realized that control without love was emptiness. The other understood that love without courage was surrender. They learned that protecting someone does not always mean leaving. Sometimes it means staying and fighting beside them. When danger struck again, it changed everything. Faced with real loss, clarity arrived. Regret was heavier than fear. In the middle of chaos, they found each other not with apologies, but with truth. Raw, honest, and unfiltered. There were tears, anger, and finally understanding. They admitted their mistakes, they admitted their fears, and most importantly, they admitted that life without each other was not living at all. This time, their reunion was stronger, not fueled by passion alone, but by choice. They set boundaries. They faced family together. They stopped allowing others to decide their future. It was not easy, and it was not safe, but it was real. Chapter 2 ended not with victory, but with resolve. Love did not save them from the world. It prepared them to face it. Hand in hand, they walked forward, knowing challenges were far from over. But now, they understood something vital. In a dynasty ruled by power, choosing love was the bravest rebellion of all. Power never sleeps, and neither does fear. After choosing love openly, the air around them grew heavier, as if the world itself was daring them to break. In the merciless realm of Dinastía Casillas, peace was always temporary, and happiness came with a price no one could avoid. The third challenge arrived, disguised as success. Influence expanded. Respect increased. On the surface, everything looked stable, but power changes people, and the closer they moved toward the center of control, the more dangerous their bond became. Every decision was watched. Every emotion was measured. Love was no longer just personal, it was political. Rumors spread quietly. Loyalty was questioned. One wrong move could destroy not just their relationship, but everyone connected to them. To protect what they had built, they were forced to make hard choices. One had to step into a role they never wanted, embracing authority and cruelty just to survive. The transformation was slow, and it frightened the one who loved them most. This created the deepest conflict yet. Love began to feel unfamiliar. Tenderness was replaced with distance. The person they fell for seemed to be disappearing behind power and responsibility. Nights were colder, conversations shorter. The fear was no longer about losing life, but losing identity. Temptation entered at the weakest moment. Someone from the past returned, offering escape, softness, a life without blood or danger. For a moment, the idea of leaving everything behind felt possible. That temptation was not betrayal, but exhaustion. Love was still strong, but the weight of survival was crushing. The turning point came when innocence was threatened. A child, a future, a reminder of what they were fighting for. In that moment, everything became clear. Power without humanity was destruction. Love without sacrifice was illusion. They faced each other honestly, stripped of titles and fear, and remembered who they were before the dynasty tried to define them. Together, they made a bold decision. They would no longer let fear dictate their love. They would use power not to dominate, but to protect. Lines were crossed. Enemies were confronted. Boundaries were drawn with clarity and courage. It was dangerous, but it was necessary. The resolution did not come with celebration. It came with peace. A quiet understanding that love does not survive by hiding or running. It survives by evolving, by adapting without losing its soul. As chapter 3 closed, they stood stronger, not because the world became kinder, but because they became wiser. They knew more battles awaited them, but now they also knew this truth. In a world built on violence, choosing compassion was the ultimate act of power. Every dynasty eventually faces its reckoning, not from enemies outside, but from the truth it has buried for years. For them, that reckoning arrived quietly, without gunfire or warnings, settling into their lives like a shadow that refused to leave. In the unforgiving world of Dinastía Casillas, survival was no longer the question. Purpose was. Power had given them safety, but it had also taken pieces of their souls. The nights were calmer now, yet heavier. Silence replaced chaos, and in that silence, guilt began to speak. Faces from the past returned in memories. Decisions made for survival echoed with consequences they could no longer ignore. Love had kept them alive, but now it demanded more than passion. It demanded accountability. The next challenge was legacy. What would remain after them? Fear had built the Casillas empire, but fear could not sustain a future. They argued again, not with anger, but with exhaustion. One believed walking away was the only way to end the cycle. The other feared that leaving would invite chaos and destruction for those left behind. Love stood at the center of the debate, stretched between responsibility and freedom. The world tested them one last time. A betrayal from within shattered what little certainty remained. Someone they trusted chose ambition over loyalty, threatening to expose everything. This was not just a threat to power, but to their chance at redemption. The old instincts returned, violent and decisive. For a moment, it seemed easier to become what the world expected of them. But love had changed them. Instead of reacting with cruelty, they chose strategy. Instead of revenge, they chose truth. The confrontation was tense, painful, and public. Secrets were revealed. Lies collapsed. The cost was high, but the cycle finally cracked. After the storm, they faced the hardest choice of all. Stay and rule, or leave and rebuild. There was no perfect answer, only faith. Together, they chose a future where love was not hidden behind power. They stepped away from the throne, not as fugitives, but as survivors who had learned enough. The final moments of this chapter were simple. No luxury, no guards, just two people standing in the light of a new beginning, aware that peace does not erase the past, but it allows healing. Love was no longer a rebellion, it was a foundation. Chapter 4 did not end with certainty. It ended with hope. A rare, fragile hope earned through pain, loss, and unwavering devotion. They understood now that true power is not domination, but the courage to change. And in leaving the dynasty behind, they finally claimed something greater than control. They claimed their humanity.